If you want to start a nonprofit in the state of Texas, this is the video for you. I'm going to share 7 things you need to be aware of in your process of starting a nonprofit. I'll be sharing form numbers and the agencies you should know about to get the information that you need. I'm Tiffany with Boss on a Budget. I teach people how to start nonprofits and how to raise money from the ground up. If you need help with your nonprofit, make sure you are subscribed to this channel because I drop videos every week. When you are starting a nonprofit, there are a few things you need to do first before you go to the paperwork. A lot of people rush to the paperwork first. But what I want you to start thinking about is, first of all, what problem are you trying to solve? Why do you want your organization to exist? That is the foundation of everything that you're going to do when you're talking about your nonprofits. You have to get clear on what problem are we trying to solve? Who are we helping? Why do they need our help? That will help you form your mission statement. It's important for you to know what this mission statement will be as you approach the paperwork and as you approach the startup process. I also want you to start thinking about who is going to be on your board. As I'm going to share more later, you are required to have a board of directors, and Texas requires at least 3 people. So you need to start thinking about who those 3 people are going to be because they need to go on your paperwork. Here's the last thing I want you to know before we go into the 7 things. Usually a state will have details about how a nonprofit is supposed to conduct itself written in law or some kind of code. The Texas Business Organizations Code and information pertaining to nonprofits is specifically in Chapter 22. I've looked at a lot of different laws across the U.S. pertaining to nonprofits, and Texas is very detailed. It's a lot more detailed than a lot of the other states' code or laws that I've looked at. So my advice to you is bookmark Chapter 22 and read through it. And the reason why I want you to read through it is because you need to understand what you're required to do, and a lot of that translates to your bylaws. So you need to understand what the law is to make sure you're not breaking the law, but also to make sure any decisions you make will hold up in the court of law. So let's dive into these 7 things. The first thing you need to think about is your name. When you are registering your nonprofit corporation, you need to make sure that there are not any other businesses or corporations that you will be mistaken for. So you need to do a check to make sure that your name is unique. Texas has an email and a number that you can contact so you can do a quick search to make sure that your name is not already taken. It's also a good idea to check the U.S. trademark website to make sure that nobody else has trademarked your name. Because the worst thing you want is to be putting out information, getting social media pages, and then you get a cease and desist letter because you're using the same name as an already established and trademarked business. If you need a link to that trademarking database, I have that included in my free nonprofit startup checklist, which includes a full process for starting your nonprofit that goes along with the video that I mentioned earlier. If you want that startup checklist, just comment startup checklist and I'll send it to you. The second thing you need to consider is your registered agent. So if you are establishing your corporation, you need to have a registered agent, and that's a person who can receive legal correspondence on your behalf. Your registered agent has to have a physical address in the state of Texas. And in Texas, that person must consent either in written form or electronic form to being the resident agent of the organization. Keep in mind that the address for the registered agent can't just be a simple mailbox service or a telephone answering service. There actually has to be an actual street address where someone can receive correspondence. And also keep in mind that when you are putting addresses on these forms, this is public information and people can see your address. So if you're signing up to be a registered agent and you put your home address will be disclosed. Just keep that in mind. Number 3, you want to think about your articles of incorporation. This is actually the start of you beginning your organization. This is when you are declaring to the state, hey, we are an actual business. This is our purpose. This is what we intend to do. And in response, the state will give you a certificate of formation that you can have to prove to the IRS that you are an actual organization. At the recording of this video, it costs $25 to submit your articles of incorporation, and it is Form 202. What you need to do is go to the Secretary of State website in the state of Texas, locate that form, and you can submit that form online. One thing you need to keep in mind with the articles of incorporation is that if you know you want to get 501c3 status from the IRS, there is certain language that needs to be in your articles. The states are not responsible for making sure you have it in there because that's the business with the IRS. So what they'll do, and Texas does this as well, they'll say, hey, you need to make sure you have the required language from the IRS, but they don't tell you what that language is and they don't put it on their forms for you. So you need to do that research and make sure you have all of the language that's required in your articles, in your actual articles you're submitting to the state of Texas. So below this video in the description box, I am linking the website where you can see the language that needs to be in your articles. So does this make sense? Your first step in legitimizing your organization is filing the Articles of Incorporation with the state of Texas, specifically with the Secretary of State's office. Just a quick caveat here, your articles are different from your bylaws. Your bylaws are the rules of governance. It really speaks to how your board is supposed to operate. So your bylaws will speak to what your purpose is, how many people can be on the board, what are the terms of your board members, what are the officers, what are their roles, how you vote people in, how many meetings you're supposed to have every year. All of those details go into your bylaws. The IRS does not require that you have bylaws. They do suggest that you have bylaws. And if you are submitting a certain kind of form, they want to see your bylaws, but they're not necessarily required. But I would highly recommend that you put together a set of bylaws for your organization. So that was kind of a twofer. That was your articles of incorporation and your bylaws that you want to consider. Number 4, you want to get your employer identification number. And yes, I'm saying these things in order. So don't get your employer identification number or your EIN until you have gotten your certificate of formation. The only place to get your EIN is with the IRS. Make sure that when you're getting this form online, you are actually at the irs.gov website, no other website. It is absolutely free to get this. It takes less than 5 minutes. The system is down over the weekends and in the late evenings, so it's best to do this during the day. But you go through the process, go through the prompts, let them know you're a nonprofit organization, let them know the information about the state you're in, and they immediately produce an EIN for you. And you have a PDF that you need to save in your corporate binder for your organization. This is not where you stop. You do not have tax exempt status. You are not officially a 501c3 yet. That leads me to the next step. This is the 5th thing you need to consider. 501c3 status. I want to be clear about something. You are a nonprofit when you incorporate with the state. Once you decide to get federal tax exempt status, that means that your nonprofit is exempt from paying tax on any income that you make. So if you bring in any money, you don't have to pay tax on that. But typically you have to apply for that status, and just know that there are different tax exempt statuses. 501c3 is not the only one. There are different types of nonprofits. So 501c6, 7, I think there are 29 different statuses, but most people go for 501c3 when they want to do charitable work. Right? I broke this down of the different types of organizations that qualify for 501c3. So if you want to see that video, I'm linking it above. But typically, if you're doing charitable work or religious or educational, scientific, research work, then you would be eligible for 501c3 status. In order to apply for status, you need to use one of 2 forms, either the 1023 or the 1023-EZ. The 1023-EZ is the streamlined version of the 1023 form. Either one of those forms you need to use to apply. You submit those forms online. You sign up for an account at pay.gov. Once you sign up for pay.gov, you put in your credit card information so that you can pay the fee. If you submit the EZ form, that's $275. If you submit the long form, which is the 1023, that's $600. The EZ form takes up to 3 months for the IRS to respond. The long form, the 1023, takes up to 6 months. Everyone is not eligible for the EZ form, but most people that I engage with are. They do have an eligibility worksheet, so I'm linking that below so you can see whether or not you're eligible to fill out the EZ form. One of the main things that may qualify or disqualify you is whether or not you're going to bring in more than $50,000 per year for the first 3 years. If you plan to bring in more, then you need to fill out the long form. But check out the worksheet to see if you are eligible, and then from there you can decide what form to submit. The long form requires a lot more information and a lot more preparation, and I always tell people, even if you're not submitting the long form, still read it, still understand it, because the information the IRS is asking of you in those forms is very similar to the information they're going to want to know on a regular basis. So you need to prepare yourself for how you need to respond to the IRS and to know the kind of things that they care about. The sixth thing you need to think about is registering for your tax accounts. So organizations in the state of Texas can be exempt from sales tax, hotel occupancy tax, and franchise tax. But you have to apply for that and you need to set up your tax account. So go to the comptroller's office to handle all of that for your nonprofit. And the seventh thing you should be aware of when starting your nonprofit is charitable solicitation. So just generally, if you are soliciting grants or donations from an organization, typically the state will require that you've registered in that state. So if that donor or funder is in that state, you have to register to be able to ask for money in that state. It doesn't matter where you're from. It just matters where that donor or that funder lives or operates. So for the state of Texas, only certain kind of organizations are required to register, and most people who have direct service organizations would not qualify, but it's still important for you to understand the rules. Go to the Attorney General's office, look through their charitable registration requirements to make sure that your organization is not required to register. But typically, most nonprofits who do direct service work are not required to register for charitable solicitation. One thing I do want to say about fundraising in Texas, and I only know this because I have a private membership of founders and many of them are in the state of Texas. If you want to do a raffle, you have to wait 3 years before you're allowed to do a raffle in your state. When it comes to money and soliciting money from people, I would take that very seriously. So some of you are like, a raffle? I'm gonna do a raffle. It doesn't matter. How are they gonna find out? But I would just say when it comes to requirements like these, when it comes to fundraising, you don't want to mess around with that and you don't want to blemish on your organization. So understand what the rules are, read for yourself, and just know that you probably have to wait a few years before you can do any kind of raffling. That's why it's so important for you to do your own research. So that's why I'm calling out the names of the agencies that you need to go to so you can look for yourself. It's one thing to be listening to somebody on YouTube, and yes, I'm trying to give you as much information as possible, but please go to the source and please read this for yourself. The last thing I want to say is about ongoing reporting. Most states require some kind of annual report or ongoing report on your activities. Texas does not necessarily require an annual report. They require a report up to every 4 years, and they will reach out to you and let you know when they want you to submit a report, which is real interesting to me, but I'm just going to move on from that. I'll just say that's why it's so important to have a reliable registered agent so that when they do send correspondence in the mail, you don't miss this stuff and you don't get penalized for not submitting a report. So I want to recap the general process for starting your nonprofit. Once you have your name established, you know what your mission is, and you know who's on your board, then you want to go to the Secretary of State's office, do your articles of incorporation. When that process is complete and you have your certificate of formation, you get your EIN number from the IRS. Then you can apply for 501c3 status with the IRS and you wait either 3 months or 6 months for a response. Most times you can get a response much faster. Once you do that, you're set up in terms of the paperwork in the state of Texas, but now comes the hard work. So if you need help understanding how to plan for your first year, I do have a first year founders workbook to help you plan out what to do in year one. If you need that workbook, just comment startup workbook below. If you need help with your nonprofit, you can always visit me at bossonabudget.com. And thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.